Right, so thank you all for joining us today. Again, my name is Shannon Serrato. I'm the Director of Engagement here at Cradle-to-Career, and we're so excited to have you all with us today. But before we jump into today's session, I want to go over a bit of housekeeping. So this meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the Cradle-to-Career YouTube page, as well as posted to the Cradle-to-Career website under our meetings and community conversations pages in the coming days. Equity and accessibility are central to our work, and these meetings will be made available in the languages that our population speak. So today's meeting is being closed caption enabled. To turn on captions, click the three dots to the far right bottom of your screen and select captions. You can also select your preferred language by launching the CC button at the bottom of your screen. We are also glad to once again have Spanish interpretation services offered for today's session, with a big thanks to Heidi Aboyetas for joining us this afternoon. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heidi for a few instructions on how to enable interpretation for today's session.
Buenas tardes, gracias por acompañarnos. Acaba de anunciar la directora de involucramiento, Shannon Serrato. Les comunica que tendremos interpretación simultánea. Puede ir a la parte inferior de su pantalla buscando el símbolo del globo terráqueo. Muchas veces se encuentra en los 3 puntos. Apriete esa opción y elija lenguaje de interpretación, o en inglés que dice Language Interpretation. Elija su lenguaje. Si está acompañándonos por teléfono, necesita apretar Done o Terminado para ejecutar la acción, o solamente elegir español si está en un computador. En un momento estaremos en el canal en español para proporcionar interpretación. Gracias.
Thank you, Heidi. So with that, I've added you to the chat. Just make sure everything's working perfectly. Okay. So with that, I wanted to note that while today's session, you all are muted. You can answer or drop any questions you may have today in the chat. We have a full conversation today, so if you have questions that you want specifically answered about the data story, we request that you drop them in the Q&A so that we can make sure that we see them. So just a quick note about that. And just wanted to share that we will be utilizing the community guidelines that we created with you all to guide today's meeting. We want to foster a brave and respectful shared space, and we appreciate your commitment to creating community with us today. So we want to learn a little bit more about each other today. So first, about C2C. The California Cradle-to-Career Data System was named in state legislation to be California's source of actionable data and research on education, economic, and health outcomes for individuals, families, and communities. C2C has been envisioned to be the most inclusive data system of its kind in the nation, and we employ a three-pronged approach of community engagement to inform the development, interpretation, and awareness building of the data system. We're scaling tools to support college planning and transition, and we're working to build an analytical data set on the education and job outcomes. And you'll hear a lot more about that today. So for more information, we have a handy infographic available at C2C, available at bit.ly/C-1_pager. Super easy to remember. But you can find all the information available about C2C there. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our Director of Data Programs, Ryan Estriato, to hear from you all today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan Estriato, Director of Data Programs, like Shannon said, and I've got the next part of the presentation, which is here to welcome everybody. Today, we're going to be collaborating together to build something. And of course, when we collaborate, it's important that we welcome each other, get to know each other, and also set a creative tone. And so to accomplish all of those things, we have some questions for you. I'm going to read some of these questions, and then as I read them, I'd like for you to start answering in the chat. We have a little bit of time for me to read a few out loud. I know this is not the same as chatting in person or having coffee together to get to know each other, but we found this works pretty well in a pinch. So I'm going to go ahead and read these questions today. There are, how many do we have? We have 3 of them. First, what is your name, organization, and where are you joining us from? Again, begin typing, or if you're thinking you need to type separately, you can add it in later. There are 3 of them. That's one of 3. Number 2, is this your first community conversation? And what are you most looking forward to today? And then finally, share something you recently made for another person. This could be anything, but we've got a couple of examples. Maybe you've made cookies for somebody. Maybe you are a teacher and made a classroom lesson for your students, a greeting card for a friend, or a nice email. The idea here is think about a time that you made something for somebody else, share with us, and that hopefully will set the creative tone for us, because that is what we are going to be doing today. Okay, I'm seeing some responses here. Hi, Jenna. Hi, Jennifer. McKenna, hi. It's coming really fast here.
I saw Alan Durrell, Caleb, Lisa, SFUSD, Beth Cutter. I'm trying to get the ones that we already missed.
Yep.
It's going so fast.
I see Christina's made a cake for somebody. That's really cool. Lucky person. Somebody from NYS, Tara. That's New York State, somewhere else. Oh, Cal Matters, so probably not New York. Governing board
Hello,
member
Meredith Lee.
Member Lee, welcome. Okay, keep them coming. If you are still thinking, that is fine. Please put your thoughts in the chat, introduce yourself. You can continue doing that while we move on, but we are going to move on because we want to get to the main part of the event here. So thank you so much for participating in the welcome. I hope that you got to meet somebody new and got some inspiration for things to make for other people. And with that, we are going to make something together for the public. Back to you, Shannon.
Thank you, Ryan. I saw somebody made enchiladas this weekend, and also somebody made a baby blanket, and both of those things are very exciting to me. So I aspire to that. So we've got a full agenda for today. I'll just voice this over. We were going to take a first look at the Student Pathways data story. But first, we're going to kick off with an update about C2C. It's been a while since we've last spoke to each other, so I want to make sure y'all have heard what we've got going on. Then we're going to have an informational portion of today's community conversation on the Student Pathways data story, where you'll be hearing from our data programs team, Emily Schneider and Elizabeth Parati, about the Pathways data story. And we'll also share about our planned companion materials for the data story. And then if we have time, fingers crossed, we will definitely have time. We just may have less time because we've got a lot today to cover. We'll have a Q&A before we close. So we're going to jump right into today's updates. As I've said, we're going to talk a lot about our Student Pathways data story, but we wanted to share some progress made at C2C in these last few months. So kicking it off, we've got some good news. Just last week, C2C was recognized as the 2024 California Government Innovation Summit for its unprecedented collaboration. C2C received the Best Collaboration Award as the office is committed to ensuring an inclusive and transparent process as C2C builds actionable tools for all Californians. In other exciting news, C2C recently moved into C2C's permanent office space in Sacramento. For those who do not know, for the last few years, we've been gratefully sharing space formerly occupied by Census. But thanks to our operations team, with a huge shout out to our Director of Operations, Leslie Taylor, they designed an inclusive and thoughtful new space, our new home for C2C. We had our first in-person governing board meeting a few weeks ago on August 14th, and we celebrated the new space with a ribbon cutting ceremony that featured remarks from Government Operations Agency Secretary Tong, Assemblymember Jackie Irwin, Michael Wiafe with the Governor's Office, and C2C's outgoing board chair, Robert Chagorda, and Executive Director, Marianne Bates. I also want to give a quick plug to an upcoming event. C2C's Executive Director, Marianne Bates, myself, and Ryan will be at the EdTrust West Equity Forum next month, leading the session, Building Equitable Futures, centering users to illuminate pathways to success in the C2C data system. We're very, very excited about this, and we hope that you will join us. The session will focus on C2C's data dashboards and user-centered design work, and will feature a star-studded panel, at least in our hearts, of some of the data system's key stakeholders and end users. And finally, I want to share that the C2C team is hiring. We've got openings on the team for a cloud architect and senior data engineer. So if you or someone you may know is interested in the role, please visit c2c.ca.gov/careers. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Emily Schneider and Elizabeth Parati for a Student Pathways Data Story preview.
Hey everybody, nice to see you all. Welcome. I'm Emily Schneider. I'm a research data specialist here at C2C, and I'm going to be leading the walkthrough of the data story. And I also wanted to introduce my colleague Elizabeth. And Elizabeth, if you want to say hi.
Hi, everybody. Elizabeth Parati here. I'm also a research data specialist. Emily's going to lead the walkthrough, but I will be answering questions as they come up in the chat.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so we're super excited today to share with you a preview of our Student Pathways data story, our first data story dashboard that's going to be released based on our data set. So before I do share my screen, I wanted to set a few, sorry, I'll slow down a little bit. Haven't had live interpretation before. So I wanted to set some expectations for what you're going to see. So we're going to look at our current best thinking for the launch of the Student Pathways data story. And it's an opportunity for conversation and for learning. We're previewing these designs for you where they're at a special place in the process. The designs for the visualizations are locked. We're not going to be changing these visualizations or the data underneath them, because our data infrastructure team is already hard at work developing those visualizations for the dashboard. But we are going to be continuing to evolve the text around the visualizations. And also, we're still working on companion materials for the launch and other storytelling elements. So our hope today is to show you what we have, hear all of your questions and all of your feedback. And when we can, we'll incorporate your feedback into the first launch. And when we can't, we'll save it for future versions. So the other things I wanted to note is that what you're going to see is not the final data. It's not real data. It's synthetic data. Again, it's not the final text, and it's not a fully interactive prototype. It's a wireframe. So for a wireframe, just to explain what that is, if you don't know, it is a preview of the design and overall structure of the dashboard, but it's limited in functionality and interactivity. So all of the pieces are there, but not all of them. You can't click everything and see what it's going to do. So those are my caveats, but I'm really excited to share with you. If Shannon, you can stop sharing the slides, then I will share my screen. And again, put any questions you have into the chat. Elizabeth will try to answer them in the chat, also elevate them for me to discuss. And then we have until 12:40, so 25 minutes for this conversation. Plenty of time to look at this, look at it again, ask questions, have any discussion that we want. And again, all questions, all feedback are more than welcome. So what I'm sharing now shows how the student pathway dashboard will appear on our website. And this dashboard is going to be, this data story is going to be focusing on life milestones from high school graduation through post-secondary education, through higher ed and beyond. And it's focusing specifically on students who graduate from public high schools in California, who go to public colleges in California, in the community college system, the UC system, or the CSU system, and then who go on into the workforce in California. So this is, far from all of the data we have in our data system, but this is our starting point for the first dashboard. So we have a really big focus on specific communities and specific types of students. So we really want to be able to help folks focus on equity and disaggregate the statewide data by geography, specifically by school district, the local high school, the local K-12 district or legislative district. And then also by student population, like race or foster student status. So I'm just going to click that and show a little bit what it's going to look like. You'll be able to select a specific race or ethnicity, specific gender, whether somebody was in the foster system, and whether they experienced homelessness in K-12 to look for students who fit those profiles. And you'll be able to look statewide or specific school districts or legislative districts. I'm going to keep it statewide for now, but then we're going to go back and look at that, what's going to look like. So there are 6 visualizations on this dashboard. Oops. The first one looks at how California students have navigated to and through college. And it follows students from being a high school graduate, again, fake data, not really 10,000 students, but a high school graduate from a public high school through where they first enrolled in college, whether it was a public 4-year college, a public 2-year college, or if they never enrolled in a California public college, which could mean they didn't go to college at all, but it could also mean that they went to a private college in California or went out of state. And this data is not looking at that. It's just focusing on California publics. This is looking at those students over an 8-year period from their graduation in 2014 15 school year to the 22-23 school year. And by the end of that 8-year period, what is the highest degree that they've earned? Did they attended but they didn't yet complete college? Did they complete a community college certificate, an associate degree, or a bachelor's degree? Kind of looking at my notes here. So this visualization, like all of them, is going to be interactive in that you can mouse over and see extra details. So if you're looking at this big block, maybe you're not sure exactly, how many students that is, what percentage that is, but then the mouse over will show you, okay, this is 38% of students, and sort of explain a little bit more about what that means. So all of these will do that. This doesn't currently do it in this wireframe. And then this will show you where students who first enrolled in a 2-year, if they ended up going to a 4-year, completing a bachelor's degree, or getting a community college bachelor's degree, folks who first enrolled in a 4-year, all of the different paths that that people take and the California students take through higher ed. So that's the first visualization. It sort of is taking a bird's eye view of this group of students that we chose because we had enough time to track them through our data set and really see a representative sample of, not a representative sample, it's everybody, but they're kind of might be a way that they represent other Californians. And then we'll be looking at data for other years in the future. So that's the big high level one. And then we zoom in more detail, first looking at who's enrolling in college, looking at first time college enrollment by student population. And here users can see the share of each student group. In this example, there's race, who enrolled in college in a given year. It starts with all types of colleges, and you can break it down by 2-year and 4-year. You can also look at this data for different years. It starts with the most recent, and then you're going to be able to pick earlier years going all the way back to 2014-15. In this graph, we really focus on a side-by-side comparison. So I want to show you, this is again statewide, but you can do a side-by-side comparison for the specific area that you're looking at. So if I go here and I'm looking, say, for the Davis Joint Unified School District, I can select this. Sorry, it's not really going to go up back like that. And then you actually end up with a side-by-side. So you have the California public high school graduates, and then here graduates just from Davis Joint Unified School District. So you get something similar by changing the population filter, but I'm not gonna, that's not working yet on this wireframe. If there are any clarifying questions in the chat, just let me know, Elizabeth, and if not, we'll make sure to address all the questions afterwards. So I'm going to keep the Davis filter on so you can actually see the data that we're going to looking at now throughout the page is just for students who graduated from the Davis School District. So we're going we're following these key milestones from first-time college enrollment, next to what types of degrees or awards students earn. So this is looking at the degrees and certificates they earned in a given academic year, who graduated from college in 22-23. And it's a visualization that just shows the spread of whether how many associate's degrees were awarded, bachelor's degrees for folks who didn't transfer, bachelor's degrees for folks who did transfer from a 2-year to a 4-year, and a community college certificate. And then we also have some sort of automatic calculations for you about how the data has changed over time since the previous year. Thinking about the data, by the way, I did want to flag one more thing that I hadn't talked about yet. On each of those charts, we do have a way to download the data. That's going to be letting you download the data that is behind the particular visualization with the filters that you've selected. There's also, if you're looking through this and you have questions about, okay, but how do you know if somebody's got an associate degree? You know, what happened to people who, you know, went to a private college, any kind of FAQs, it's going to link out to a set of FAQs. And then there's information about how to read the chart. So this is, again, our degrees and certificates earned in a specific award year. Continuing to scroll down. A question people are often asking is, how long does it take somebody to graduate? How long does it take someone to earn an award? So just the count of whether you got it doesn't tell us a lot about how hard you've been working and how long it's taken you to get there. So we're starting to answer that question by looking at median time to award for those folks who earned their degrees in the previous graph. So here again, you can select the year and then specific award type, certificate, associate's degree, a bachelor's degree for folks who transferred and those who didn't. And that's just going to show us a little bit about median time to award for those students. And from there, we kind of step away a little bit just from the academic side of it and start to look at the work side of it. And this is a really exciting opportunity for C2C to bring together wage data and link it with college data and higher ed data. So the two questions that we're going to be addressing in this particular data story is about students who work while they enrolled in college, how many students are working, and what are they earning, what's the median earnings. So this is just a little infographic showing, again, we're still looking at just at Davis grads, but we could go back and change that at any time to another school district or to California statewide, seeing that of students enrolled in a 2-year college, 42% of them are working. 4-year college, only 27% are working. Again, made up data, but this is, you know, that's an example. And then sort of saying, okay, then how much are those students making, not on average, but the median, and that statistic is going to be here. Worth noting here that this doesn't necessarily include it's not going to necessarily include everybody who is working, but we're doing our best to capture those with the data that we have. So it's a starting place. And it looks like my screen has frozen. That's good. Okay, there we go. Better. Whoa, something very weird is happening. Okay, we're good. How much do students earn after they graduate is our last question. So then looking at college graduates who are employed in California, in the years past, since they earned their award, 1 up to 5 years, 1 year after graduating, 2 years, 3 years, again, what's the median annual wages for those students? And then this is focusing, just like the previous one, the data that we are going to be able to have is students who have, or in this case, graduates who have submitted a W-2. So they're working in a job that has a W-2, and also folks who are working full-time, because that's the cleanest way to calculate it. So that's the last one. Those are the 6 visualizations we have, and you know, our goal here was really to capture as much of the student pathway from high school graduation through college activities and the workforce as we could with the data that we currently have. And yeah, just provide a good starting point for all of the insights folks are hoping to get into our data set, into the California's data set, about education and work, with many more to come. So I'm going to scroll up to the top, and you can even refresh it, so it's just all going to be statewide. And then yeah, let me see what folks have been chattering about. I'm very excited to hear. Yeah, Elizabeth, do you want to read me some of the questions, or should I look at them myself? Or I'm
Yeah, there's a lot. I'm catching up. So I was just in the middle of responding to a few. So there's some questions about career and technical education, or CTE, industry breakdowns, those who enroll in higher ed but do not complete. And so just want to flag that there's a lot of information, a lot of interesting nuance around these different topics, but we're looking at that for future dashboards, not for the first launch.
yeah. Yes, let me just try and skim through. Wow, really a lot of so I'll try to answer some of the simpler ones. So those who enroll in higher ed but don't complete, the way that they're going to be showing up here is specifically in this branch, they attended but not yet complete college. And that is what we're tracking about them so far in this dashboard. I'm curious about other things you want to learn about, Carol. If you're wondering about specifically earnings, I think that group starts to get so big that it's not really a meaningful comparison, especially because, at least on this, because I think maybe what you might be asking about is here, why is this just folks like with who have awards, but what about folks who never went to college, and folks who started higher ed but then did not complete? With the data we currently have, we can't really distinguish between folks who didn't go to college at all and who went to a private college, the data that's going to be running this dashboard. So we wanted to, sort of, for the simplicity of the story, just include these guys. Let's see. I'm just going to sort of look at these backwards. So Caleb is asking about how granular the data can get to zip codes, cities, or parcel code. The data, I believe, we have zip code in cities. I'm not sure about parcels in this particular release. We're just going to be focusing on district and legislative units. So I'm curious at what you want, as well as what you're, what are you looking for there? So let's see, I wonder if my colleague David Ling can maybe answer the question about, on the wage data chart, is there a reason that people who did not earn a certificate or degree aren't included? If you could talk a little bit about that choice that we made.
I can go into the high level of it, that in short, that the necessary data to facilitate matching and recover those data from the EDD is not currently possible. We are currently exploring alternative pathways to recover that data, but right now that we don't intend to have it on this dashboard.
Can speak to, just at a even higher level of that, about some of the questions in general about why some data are included and some aren't. And I think one thing that's really important to say is we expect that as the data system grows, we have more data and more years of data, that a lot of the questions here we will be able to include in updates of this dashboard. Not all of them, but more of them. And that in general, the type of choice that the way that the team has to evaluate what can be included is along a number of different criteria. So first, does the data in question exist, and does it exist in the system? Second, does it exist in enough volume that it meets the criteria that we need for us to be able to show it and still protect privacy? The third is, does the quality of it exist in such a way that we feel like it is reasonably interpretable by the public? And then the fourth is, can we meet all of those once we link all of the data together? And so we haven't, when we sort of look at all the way that all the possible things that we can include, not all of the potential data points, even when it does exist in some form in the system, can be included right now. Early childhood data is a real clear example there. That's if you follow the documentation and our planning, you'll know that that is going to be included here, but can't be included at the moment because some of those systems are still being built and haven't yet been transferred into the system. So that's just something that we want to be transparent about and sort of keep you in the loop as we develop all of these things together. We do expect this and the other dashboards, once we build them, to expand as the data system itself expands and more of that criteria gets met.
There was a question in the Q&A about how often the data will be updated. I was just going to voice this one over, that the data will be updated every year with our annual data submission. But updates on the dashboards don't have to be timed with when the data itself gets updated.
That's right. And sort of looking through these, I think a lot of the questions, like Ryan said, are about data that is potentially part of the story that you're not seeing. And so that's also something that's not necessarily, like, some of that data we already have, some of that data we still need to collect, but we're going to be both updating it with new data that comes in from our data provider partners, but also continuing to figure out ways to address more of the questions folks have either on this dashboard, on future dashboards, or included as part of the query builder tool we're going to be working on as well, that will give a wide variety of access to the data that's in the data system. I'm kind of scanning through these and I feel like we've addressed a lot of them. I wonder if folks can, if you feel like your question hasn't been addressed, maybe put it either in the chat again or in the Q&A, and we can just take another minute and see what shows up. And then we can also come back to questions at the end. And thank you. Thank you for the excitement. This is my first webinar, so it's a little strange not to see all of your faces. Okay, so then let's just look at what's in the Q&A. Can students and parents opt out of being listed here? Ryan or Shannon or David, could you speak to that one?
Shannon, do you want me to take that one? I'm happy to take it.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So Ryan, do you want to take it?
Sure, happy to take it. So the office is working on guidance related to that. We just don't have it prepared yet, but yes, it's something we are thinking about addressing that question because we know it's an important one, but we don't have any current guidance on it just yet.
Yes, and just noting that this is something that our governance structure will address as well. So just that is definitely something in the works. Just wanted to say that out loud for folks. We understand privacy and security is very important to folks and want to make sure that we have the mechanisms in place to get that ready for you all. So thank you for the question.
And Lewis is asking a good question about, is there a process for districts to correct data if districts are seeing data that they know is not correct? And I think, yeah, I know what I know about this is, we're not collecting the data directly from districts. It's going through CDE and then to us. So I think there is going to be a process to do that, that we're going to be working with our data providers to make sure that everybody knows how. And we're talking about actually including that specific question in our FAQ to support districts. Anybody have anything to add on that one right now?
No.
It looks like no. So let's see, Catherine Cooper, why is the C2C database starting so late? After CTE pathways through middle school and high school that are being tracked in the California K-16 regional collaboratives. So I'm not sure about this data that is being tracked in the collaboratives, if that how that matches with the data that we have. What I do know is that I think we have different amounts of data from different data providers going back to around 2011 for some. And so our goal was to provide a more up-to-date picture, especially post-pandemic. And then for that first one that's looking at this 8-year window, we wanted to give students enough time to sort of graduate from high school, have a few years to go to higher ed. So we didn't want to go we weren't able to go further back then in time from the data that we have, but we didn't want to go too much later. I'm not sure if that's fully answering your question, if David or anyone wants to weigh in on that one.
I will just revoice what Emily said, but we, in order to sort of track the full cycle of outcomes for some of our students, particularly for new programs and new initiatives that start relatively recently, we need to allow time for the data to season. And so that if, say, an intervention occurs in middle school, we need time for that to manifest and track through all of the different parts of the Cradle-to-Career data system. So that is part of the reason why we are starting somewhat late with this high school cohort graduate definition on this first dashboard.
Thank you for that. I love the idea of data seasoning. And yeah, I think the thing to keep in mind also for all of this is the starting place. So this is this is the very beginning of different things we're going to be able to do. So so you kind of look for that into the future, but it helps us actually by narrowing the window a little bit. It helps us provide a model for how we can do it in the future for even a longer time period or different time period, and do it in a way that is accurate and also privacy preserving for our students. Somebody's asking about high school counselors. How much can you share with them? This is a draft, but this is open to the public. So if there's anything you've taken away from this, you're welcome to share it with them. But please do remind them it is not real data, so something that they can expect. And we're happy to answer more questions about it. But yeah, just make sure they have all the caveats that I gave to you. But we're very excited to just keep on spreading the word and have people share things out.
Yeah, we will be dropping this in the chat at the end, but we have a data visualization survey that I think might be helpful for you to have access to the visuals in case you want to share that with folks. And again, there's all the caveats there, but that's easy for you to kind of run through at your leisure. So we'll drop it in maybe now, but also we'll drop it in at the end, and then we'll be doing a follow-up sharing this recording with that survey as well. So you'll have a couple of bites of that apple, but want to share that that's an easy way for you to share those visualizations. And sorry, Brian, I didn't mean to step on your toes.
Oh, no problem. I was just going to add also that for folks who are not familiar with our work and our mission, the website is always a good place to go. It's being regularly updated with information about events, also decisions made and topics discussed at all of our public meetings, including the board meetings, and a description of the future planned dashboards are on the website. Also, there are very often questions about what data is included, what data and variables do we receive from our partners, and there's a comprehensive list of those there also. I'll go ahead and take the question also about the release of the dashboard. We are aiming to release the dashboard before the end of the calendar year.
Yay.
Awesome.
So we're at 12:40 now, Emily, so just flagging that. Maybe you want to turn to our poll questions?
Jen, I forgot that we were going to give people a poll. I got so carried away. I'm so sorry.
No
okay.
problem. I'll share my screen.
You want to share your
or
screen?
do you want to?
Why don't you just share
Okay.
your screen? And I'm so sorry. I got carried away.
No problem. All right. Emily, do you want to lead us
Yeah,
through this?
sure. So yeah, we did want to just kind of get a temperature check for you about just given what you've seen, how easy to understand were the data visualizations on the dashboard. 5 is easy to understand, 1 is difficult to understand. And yeah, we just love any initial reactions you've had after what you've seen. And if there's also anything, especially for somebody who says somewhere between a 1 or a 2, if there's anything specific you wanted to point to about what was confusing, any questions you have, or what would help you understand the data better, we'd love your thoughts on that.
While we're waiting for folks to trickle in, we're at 54% of responses. I'll just go ahead and reiterate Tara Garcia Mathewson. We are aiming to release these dashboards before the end of this calendar year. All right, so we've got 62% coming in. Give folks a couple more moments to join the conversation. All right. We're at 70%, hovering at 70. So with that, I'm just going to end the poll. And it looks like we've got 41% said it's easy to understand, 52 share that it's somewhat easy to understand, 5% neutral, 2% somewhat difficult to understand, and 0% difficult to understand. So hooray.
That's fantastic.
All right.
So I can go to the next slide. So second question is, and maybe just use memory for this one. How easy was it to find where you can get more information to understand the diagram? Do you remember seeing that? Was it easy to find, difficult to find, or you didn't even see it?
All right, we've got 44% coming in. Give folks a couple more seconds to respond. I see a question from Maricela Morales. This went to just host and panelists, but want to voice over resources such as tutorials, videos, or guides for the public. Stay tuned, Maricela. We're going to talk about that in just 1 second. All right, we're at 58%, kind of hovering there. So I'm going to end the poll here and share results. So 30% said it was very easy to find, 62% said easy to find, 2% difficult to find, and 6% said they don't see it. So good feedback for us.
Well, thank you all so much. I'm going to hand over to Shannon to talk about companion materials. And again, just feeding into Maricela's question, how
Yes.
are we support folks?
Absolutely. Perfect timing for this question. So you just walked through all of the data story. You've seen all of the planned visualizations. But if you've been following us and the development of the data story, data dashboards, you know that in addition to the goal of delivering information to the public that will enable users to explore the data and the dashboards, we also want to make sure that we're facilitating data literacy to help folks who maybe aren't your data analysts or your researchers really engage with the data and learn how to make how to address questions and issues that impact them. So really just making sure that we're all kind of working from the same set of tools, and if not, adding additional tools to those toolboxes. So we plan to incorporate companion resources throughout the data story to help folks understand how to navigate the dashboards and interpret the data displayed in the visualizations. Those companion resources will include help text, data definitions, and FAQ, video tutorials, infographics, and complimentary stories from real students in California about their educational journeys. So for the rest of this time, we're going to get your input on the development of the help text, infographic, and student stories for the dashboard. So first, we're going to focus on the help text that can be found for every data visualization in the Student Pathways data story. Help text will be specific to each visualization, providing information on how to read each chart. We will show you a few different options for where we have considered placing the help text icon on each visualization. And there will be 3 visualizations or 3 versions. And at the end, you can tell us which one is easiest to find. All right, so first, we're going to take a look at option number 1. I'm going to give folks a few seconds to take a look at this visualization, take it in, and see what you think about the help text placement. All right, now we're going to look at option 2 and give folks a moment to take a look. Actually, this is option 2. I'm so sorry. My scroll button didn't work, so apologies. Let's do that again. Here's option 1. Now here's option 2. And finally, we have option 3. All right. So in just a few moments, we don't have minutes for this. We have only a few moments to have your feedback on this. Apologies, but we want to give you a sense of where the help text placement was, just as a quick side-by-side. So you can see here we have option 1, how do I read this chart? Option 2, B, how do I read the chart? And option C here. All right, so we've got one final poll for you all. Which option has the best placement? Option A, bottom right, option B, top left, or option C, the little info icon. All right, we've got 56%. Sorry, Darrell, I'm in the chat now. That was my bad, I'm sorry. For screen readers, wouldn't option A be the most kosher? Thank you for voicing that over, Luis. I really appreciate your thoughts there. All right, 61% coming in. I'm going to end this chat and share results. So 60% said option A, bottom right hand. 28% responded option B, top left. And 12% option C, the info help text. All right. We're going to keep going, skip that. And then, so you've all have been looking at the data visualization, the Sankey diagram for a lot of this feedback. And the information that you provided will help us make that journey, the educational journeys that students take over the span of 8 years better to understand. But we heard from folks that during our feedback sessions that the Sankey is a little bit difficult to digest, and that would be helpful for us to literally illustrate a student pathways journey, what a student journey could look like outside of data visualization. So we've been working on an infographic, a student pathways infographic that I wanted to share with you all for your thoughts. And there's 2 options here for preview. All right, so in this first version, we have option 1, find your story. Give folks a few seconds to take a look, take it all in. And now we've got option B, without text. All right, so for this next one, we've got side by side again, but instead of a poll, I'm really curious for your thoughts. You've all have been really helpful as far as explaining your thinking behind the initial polls. I really appreciate that, but want to get your thoughts in the chat. Which version do you prefer for an infographic? Option A, with text, or option B, without text? And if you have any thoughts around that, things that would help improve the infographic, but this is a very much a work in progress. We're working with our data visualizations, our designers every week on this, so we really want to make sure that we're giving y'all a moment to kind of pause as we, or work with us as we take a pause to see what could actually work better for you folks. So it looks like a lot of people are responding with option A. Without text, it's just a pretty picture. I hear you. I hear you. With B, it's unclear what this is for. Aneshka says option A, option B is too vague. A, and my first thought is actually to reduce the artistic parts that look like people and trees. Looking at this makes me think people represent something specific in the data. I wouldn't know what to click for option B. I would be uncertain how to navigate with option B. All right, sounds like we've got a path forward, so to speak. We can move on, thank you all. And then this last version, as we've been talking about, we have said that we are going to be sharing student stories to help complement the data dashboards. We've heard from folks that the data are there, but it's really helpful to have the voices of students really infused throughout the data story to really share that holistic picture of what a student goes through in the state of California. So to complement those insights, we are working with the Possibility Lab at UC Berkeley to feature the voices of California students to provide a holistic picture of educational journeys in the state. And so we'll be featuring student stories shared voluntarily by students on the topics included in the dashboard, such as college enrollment, where college students were enrolled in college, and how long it takes students to graduate. So today, final look, we want to get your thoughts about how best to incorporate that information into the overall data story. So first, we've got the student stories, and apologies, this is a PDF. And we tried our best to make it look good, but it's a little grainy, so I do apologize for the quality of this, but it is a mock-up as it exists now. But in this version, we've got student stories kind of interspersed throughout the data story, so you all saw the full flow. These stories would follow along a specific topic, so you'll see here they would be inserted along throughout as folks are navigating through the data story. Or we've got a separate option, which could feature student stories on their own as a standalone companion material. So either as a carousel that would be featured in line in the data story, or could be a separate page. We're still working through how best to display that information. And so wanted to use your brains today to figure out where it would make sense to include. So with that, we've got a side-by-side here. Which version do you prefer? And again, I really want to hear your thoughts in the chat. What would make sense for you? How would you like to see this data or these student stories included in the data story? A, in line, or B, as a separate module, as either as a carousel in the page or as a standalone page? Patricia says both. Both, Aneshka. Okay, so we've got some work to do there. If you have any further thoughts about why, curious to hear your thoughts. We've got B, love the carousel. Adam says both are fine. Let's see what else we've got. B, can you show their whole faces? Maricela says C, click to learn more and continue with a separate module. And then Carol says, curious how you have one story per student or for data visualization. We're not planning on having one story. We're planning on having a couple stories per topic, so we can really have a holistic, well-rounded view. So that is the current puzzle that we're trying to work through now. Thank you, Michael. Great way to include the qualitative data. All right. And to Luis's point, having the carousel adds more clicking. Absolutely. So you all are seeing the the things that we're grappling with now. We really want to make sure that we had your thoughts. All of the things that you're sharing are things that we've been thinking about. And I'm going to go through this chat with fine-tooth comb so that we can really hear from you all. But with that, we knew time was going to be tight. We've got a lot to go through. So I'm going to thank you all for that feedback. You've answered a lot of our questions today, really helped us think through some of these things. We've done a little bit of the Q&A in the past, but if there are any, not in the past, in the last couple of minutes, but if you have any questions that have not been addressed, looking to Elizabeth or Emily to let us know if there are any more questions that we need to flesh out before we wrap up.
I think we've gotten all the ones in the Q&A and questions in the chat.
Okay. All right. Final call, final question. Caleb says, once the dashboard is in its ideal state, how do you intend to use the data? Well, Caleb, that's actually a question for you. We are making this information available to the public. So however folks would like to use the data going forward, we're trying to make it as not only robust and thorough, but really making sure that is actionable so that people can learn about the issues that matter to them in their communities and really think about how they might want to use this data. So really, we are a neutral source of, we're a neutral entity. We really just want to make the data as clear, have high quality, but really give it back to the people. That is the goal of our work. So the possibilities, I wouldn't say are endless, but really it is up to the users to take the next step. So thank you for that question. All right, so with that, we thank you for joining us today. We had a full, robust hour of conversation. Really just appreciate your time and energy today. Again, it's not lost to me that you're spending your Monday lunch hour with C2C to help us work through the data stories. But as you see, we've been working on it for a while and we're getting much closer to launch. And as we get there, we really want to make sure that we're hearing from folks about what will be the most useful for you all prior to the launch. So really appreciate this, really appreciate your time and energy. And if you have any additional questions, comments, concerns, again, you can reach out to info@c2c.ca.gov. That email is monitored by a human, the engagement team led by myself, Anjali Palomar. We look at that every day. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. A reminder that a recording of today's meeting can be found on c2c.ca.gov/ways to get involved/community conversations. That page also has information about upcoming meetings and events. And then finally, as I mentioned before, if you have any additional information or additional thoughts on the data visualizations, we want to hear from you. So please make sure to take that survey. You can share that again broadly with folks. Adam, if you have folks that you want to share that with, that is a good link to use. But with that, we just really appreciate your time today. Thank you for sharing all of your thoughts. It's so helpful, and hope you have a good rest of your week.